So I just quickly was going to talk about my coat. It is fur. It is mink, a full mink lining, and fox fur. And the short version is I made it. The long version is I remade it. Um, I was working for a CEO's wife in New Hampshire, faux finishing, and she asked me. She said that she had worn this coat a couple of years, and a fur coat, and she was getting a new one, and asked me if I wanted it, and no one has ever asked me that before, but I thought the right answer, at the very least, was to say yes, and I have to say that real fur is actually really luxurious. Feeling, I mean, it's a lovely thing to wear naked. It's also has quite a nap for holding heat against you in these cold climates. Um, she wore it a couple of years. I wore it 7 or 8 until it was shredded. The exterior was shredded. I don't know what the original leather was. It was something that was finer and drapier. I got a almost, well, an upholstery weight cowhide for $200. I have rebuilt this coat. I did order mink, so I bought one mink skin to redo the cuffs, and in doing that, rather than the cuffs were half that size, I just decided to use the full length of the mink. So I did redo it. I can show you down to the satin waterproof zipper. I actually use the satin zipper because I like the little shiny quality of it. But that's my coat that I made, and it's got little plackets, and I used a little zigzag stitch for decoration, as well as I used 6970 a bonded nylon. It holds 10 pounds of stitch. This is not going to be falling apart. I expect to have this coat for quite a while. I've got a lot of mileage out of the fur. She put a couple of years in. It was reversible, and I like to wear the fur on the inside because it feels nice. And you know, put 7 or 8 years on that, and then last winter, I believe, was the first winter I completed this and wore it. So working on number 2. To me, there's there's a couple of things that I can't answer for myself or for others, not without honestly meeting. So meet. I see that there's a meta. I see that there's a meta here, okay, in terms of metal. You know, we've got the meta of metal, and metal is what we have right now. We've got a pseudo-indigenous variety of war as our universal harbor to restore the shore. And you know, your economies are basically built on that around the world. And if none of you are the heir, H-E-I-R, you're squatting on every woman that would be right here, okay? And just fine without you there, okay? So we need to understand that for starters. What else? So meat. We eat meat to have protein. Amino, whey, that's a protein as well. We're not actually meeting in time for completion even to tell and sell. that you did well and weld. uh, let's see. I think our capitulation to eat meat in society for the standard bearers to jacked off defend and Dow award again to greet him and dim. I am a bit suspect of our meat industry, that it's not actually matriculated nor managed by desire, by necessity, necessity by desire. I stopped eating meat when I was 4 because I liked Charlotte Webb and all his farm friends. I was an athlete and a good athlete, certainly good enough. I qualified for the Olympic trials when I was 20 and 4-time All-American, 3 sports in college, first woman to do that at my college. I had teammates that did the same thing after me. Was on a relay team that broke the world record. Competed in Europe, $500 a 60-second lap, and it's quite possible I was running anemic, okay? So I've tried to have more of an adult palate, to have something more than peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, so I do try once in a while to consume meat or prepare it. How do I draw the line for someone else? Am I meant to? You know? I don't know. I had a wonderful pizza from Otto's. Their bacon scallion potato pizza it's really tasty. Okay? I'm not denying pig is tasty. Okay? You know, but I'm willing to, and fur, you know, Pamela Anderson does not like fur. Faux fur pollutes the environment. I made this. I remade it. There's a value in undertaking that, okay? I didn't do this in a short time. It took me, shoot, at least a year, if not longer. I had to take it apart. I had to make a pattern from soft leather pieces that had kind of shifted in their shape. So one panel on one side took apart, panel on another side, they're not exactly the same. So I had to figure out, okay, how am I going to draft this line? And on top of it, I had to engineer. I'm not working with the same skin. I'm working with a thicker skin. Thin skin, I could put 2 layers together, sew them, and flip it so that the raw edges are on the inside. This thick skin, it's so hard to flip, so I had to lay on top. So I used a double stick tape and laid on top, but before that I dyed the edges. You know, so a lot of these are constructed where the seam allowance is overlapping and it's laid on top. And so I had to engineer that, and I had to see that through in drafting pattern pieces. I had to see that through in terms of engineering, at least in thought, how is this going to go together? Do I need to make more seam allowance on this pattern because I'm anticipating to lay it on top? Or there is right here at the shoulder where I put them together and turn it, and it creates this little ribbing. And I'm not against it there. You know, but I had to think that through. I had to see that through. Oftentimes by making samples of the pocket placket, I made several samples of just that placket before I actually did the final of what would be on the coat. You know, I purposely, because I have sewn for years, I didn't work myself to being tired because of a couple reasons. One, the thing that I dislike about sewing is taking stitches out. That's not the fun part of sewing. The other is leather. You put a hole in it and you don't like the stitch and you take it out and you put more holes in, you are making the leather, you're giving it cause to be perforated and tear. So you want to lay those stitches down right the first time. And for me, it was to give them also a distance, give them more distance rather than really tight, close stitches. Again, I don't want perforation. It's taken me a year to re-engineer this and put it back together. And then picking components, thread that holds 10 pounds of stitch. Do this once. I do this once, that's it. There was that one part, so there's an elastic around the band at the bottom, and in the last coat that elastic dried out and it lost its elasticity. So knowing that that was a weak link in the coat, I put a little grommet on the inside with I used industrial bungee cord. So it's a bungee cord that stretches, and then I've got a little, what are these called? A bee lock, so that should that elastic become fatigued and no longer hold the shape of the bottom of the coat where I want it, I've got access. I just pull on my bee lock and tighten it with the bungee cord that's industrial, and it's not going to crap out like they used an elastic that I used in making a gym clothing, and I'm sure that worked for that weight of leather, but over time, shoot, you know what, I'm sure a full mink coat, I mean, that was the interior. It was the whole thing's reversible. It's mink. Its beginning price is probably, I think, $3,000. To think that your elastic wears out in a decade, I don't know. I would expect more from a coat. I wouldn't expect parts to fail. Okay, and then get sloppy as hell, or he will. You will think of this. Okay. So meat, what's at stake, for goodness sake? Propriety. I made this, and you weren't there, Pamela Anderson. Okay, you weren't in the marketplace. So I'm not apologizing for this either. I'm not apologizing for wearing fur, and I'm especially not apologizing for wearing it, having it given to me, having worn it for quite a while to shreds, and having remade it to go the distance. What else? Maybe we need to bring that to our meat consumption then. Consider being there and consider what it truly takes versus what it doesn't. Dow with wart, again, to gain your escort. Ask your sort. 10 in short, hort, sort. I think the value is building from the ground with your necessity in working relationships, So there's some things that I don't draw a line on. I made a fur coat. Pamela Anderson's not into that, you know, but I'm not into rampant fashion for no reason thief end. I'm not into, oh great, another looking glass that's hyphenated and it's also polluting the environment. Remarkably, okay? You know, it's just an idea. I've had a faux fur jacket and it was really lovely and I actually still miss it, you know? Okay, I think we need to make fashion count. When I made this, my intention to make it speaks for itself. That because I'm making it for myself, I'm not making it for the theater. I'm not making it for an ooh and ah runway to be to make another ooh and ah that I'm just going to keep tossing hyphenated shit over my shoulder so I can ooh and ah on the present stage. To tool a look to give ta and law with weight with he hyphen ye hyphen a in parentheses hyphen t hyphen. He ate at time for competition for no reason. So the value in making it is, well, there's a lot of things, and you know, like the pinafore that I got from Levi's, where I'm questioning myself. I'm like, if you buy it, you won't make your own, or will you? I'm like, well, I like denim, I can wear denim, but what I really want is I want it in linen with little pearlized snaps, and I'm like, you know, so it's still on its way. We'll see. But there's that question of what I'm trying to get at is that gap between want and desire and need. And if I don't just throw money at something, but I make myself make it, do you really want it? You know? At least in proportion to what I'm readily buying, you know. You start to understand the commitment to weather the ups and downs of what you have in mind and what's not actually producing that way. Okay, so I have an idea, I want to remake that coat. Wow, I have to study leather. Seams, threads. I went to Tandy Leather in Massachusetts and talked to them about it. Tell me about leather. So I'd already gone in there with the idea of I'm going to have to overlap those seams, and I went in there and they told me the same thing. I'm like, okay, good. and I'm not a person that works with leather a lot. I was just kind of like, you know what, I can't, the jacket's going to be so stiff if every one of those seams is just folded. And, you know, because you're building a scope in a way. You're building it's like architecture. It's a fortified seam and now it's like a bridge. You know, it's wielding shape. And I can see you're freaking out over there. I'm gonna go play frisbee with Minnow and get that first video up. But I wanted to show the world I don't want to be ashamed. I made this because I was here, and it's what I have to work with. And I invite you to do the same, okay? Back to a tingle toe. Got a tingle toe. It kind of helps if I keep touching them. Except that big toe. Big toe. Oh, tingle, 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 tingle. Everything about it tingles. It doesn't matter how much you squeeze them. The other toes, if I go back and tingle, then the tingle kind of goes away. Big toe, nope, it just tingles.